Welcome to my third video in the Beginner Basics series. So today's video talks all about how to build an apex with dip powder. So what I decided to do for this is I have my little thumb here, which you guys have probably seen recently as I've been trying to grow it out. I'm going to do a tutorial on how I build an apex on my thumb. It doesn't even have builder gel on it or anything. So you guys are going to kind of like see that from scratch with the tip, all the things. So stay tuned. To get started, I want to explain what an apex is. So building an apex means you're building a curve, and that curve is typically not only for aesthetic reasons, but also to add strength to a stress point on your nail. So you notice my natural nail was flat, and adding the apex method, it added curve to my nail. So this is the diagram we're going to be following for this video. It's been around for quite some time. You can see it was made in 2018. And the parts of this diagram we're going to follow is steps 4 through 9. The steps 1 through 3 are for really filing a tip flush to your nail, but we're not going to be adding our tip to our nail today. We're just going to be following these to make a perfect shape or apex. So to start off, here is my nail with a tip slapped on it. What I'm trying to do here is work in a zone. So I think of it like a T-zone, where I'm trying to add a curve to the stripe down the middle and kind of in the middle of my nail where a stress point would be. So that's my T-zone to me. So you can see around the edges, it is thinner. The cuticle area is thinner, but the middle center of your nail is going to be thicker and curvy. I don't have gorgeous nails like the ladies at Kiara Sky do, so I'm doing this on a short nail, not a super long one, so I hope this is more realistic for you. So you can do this with colored dip powder, but I'm going to start with clear dip powder. Step 4 breaks the nail down into 3 zones. Zone 1 is at the top, zone 3 is at the bottom. We're going to be mostly focusing on zone 2 because that is where we want to build the strength of the stress point. So every single time I place my brush on my nail, I'm always going to start with the brush on zone 2, which is the center. The diagram shows me drawing a stripe down the center of my nail, starting from zone 2 all the way to zone 3. Then you dip your nail in the clear powder. Reminder, you don't have to use clear, you can use the color that you're dipping with. So the importance of this is keeping the perimeter of the nail clear of dip powder because we want to focus on building up the center. Now this next step I'm going to do is optional, but I have pretty flat nails, so I want to emphasize the center. So I'm going to do a second stripe on top. The diagram doesn't say to do this, but I do it because if I only do one, I notice there's not a lot of thickness there. And I also work with thin liquids, which is why I think it's important for me to repeat this step specifically. So you can see since I repeated this step, it looks just the same as before. So the perimeter is clear of powder, but you can start to see a teeny little apex start to form down my nail. So the next step is to really cover most of the nail. So remember, like I said in the beginning, I always start with my brush hitting zone 2. The reason why I do this is because your brush, when you first touch it on your nail, it holds the most amount of liquid. So where do you want that liquid to go? In your apex. You don't want it to flood your cuticle. You don't want it to be concentrated on your tip. You want it to be at the apex, which is why I always start at the center, move my way down, and then fan my brush up towards my cuticle. So here I made sure that the dip powder covered most of my nail, leaving a perimeter around it free, just a thinner one than before. Now that we completed most of step 7, we need to activate our nails. The reason we're doing our activator right now is because when we apply more layers, there's going to be so much buildup that it's possible that the activator at the end will not penetrate through all the layers. So we're activating now, and then we're going to move on to step 8, which is to file, shape, and buff any lumps and bumps out. When I do this buffing, I make sure to follow the instructions where it says to taper the edges, so I focus my buffer around the cuticle area and the sides. I try not to focus it on the center because I'm not trying to file down my apex, I'm trying to taper the sides of it. Now that I'm done with the shaping, I take rubbing alcohol and a paper towel, and I just sanitize everything to get off any dust and activator. So this is what I'm looking like, not super flat, but also not super built. So our next step is to actually build in color. Again, you didn't have to use clear, but I like to. Now, as I begin to build in color, again, I focus my brush on zone 2. I work it down towards my free edge, and then I start fanning it towards my cuticle to basically cover almost my entire nail, leaving just a hairline around the edges. When I pull my nail out of the powder, you notice that I didn't actually get every single part of my nail, and that is okay. I'm going to dip a second time over this anyways. So when I brushed everything off, now I'm really focusing on getting close to my cuticle area. So I'm on the upper part of zone 2, and I'm trying to fan my brush into the thin little area that is a little left over so that I can get the dip powder into those small crevices. So you can finally see the apex forming now that I have color on the nail. There's a couple spots that I missed with my base bond brush. It's kind of hard to get in those little tiny spots. If you're OCD, you can go ahead and go in and fix it, but you don't have to. So I'm just applying a very thin layer to my nail, again, focusing on zone 2, and then using whatever liquid is left on my brush to focus around the cuticle area and the little spots that I missed. So now that we've finished up the first half of step 9, which is dipping in your color of choice, we're going to dust off and apply activator, and then we're going to file, shape, and buff. You can see that there's a little, like, some wrinkles in the dip powder on my nail. It doesn't always turn out perfect. So now I'm going to let that harden and then go in perfecting my shape the best that I can, and then go in with my buffing block. Again, like before, the first time that I buffed, I do focus on the top a little bit to get those wrinkles out, but I try to make sure that I'm focusing most of my buffing around the edges, the cuticle, and the free edge. I do not want to bring any bulk down around the top of the nail, only around the surrounding areas. If you've reached this point and you're satisfied with the way it looks, sanitize the nail, apply your top coat, or go in with your nail art. But this is basically what it looks like. It is thinner around my cuticle, it is thinner around every edge, but it builds up towards the center. Again, like I said before, not only is this aesthetically pleasing, but it's also so that you have your stress point is safe so you don't deal with cracks or breaks in your nail. Welcome back. Thank you so much for watching that video. I hope that really explained and taught you guys how the apex method works and why it's so important to do the apex method rather than just doing layer after layer after layer. I really do hope that you're enjoying these videos and this video series and that they're really helpful. If there's anything that I'm missing or you really wish I covered, definitely drop it in the comments below, but be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for next week's video. Bye!